Dear friends, I am Dr. Ashish Chauhan, Senior Consultant, Intervention Cardiology at Sarvodaya Hospital, Faridabad. This is second in series to the COVID videos for doctors. Today, I shall be discussing about approach to breathing difficulty and chest discomfort and corona and for doctors to understand. As I had mentioned in my last video, the coronavirus is a family of viruses which affect the respiratory tract in about 25% of cases. It causes common cold to pneumonia. It's a virus which usually lives in bats and other wild animals like the ducks or the camels, and it's transmitted to humans now due to a mutation in its surface glycoprotein, which is the spike glycoprotein, which has developed an affinity for the ACE2 receptor on our tissues. It can transmit between humans via respiratory droplets. This is the spike glycoprotein which is developed on itself, and this adheres to the ACE2 receptor on the lungs, on the cardiomyocytes, on the vascular system, kidneys, testes, GIT, and therefore affects these organs. Predominantly presents with shortness of breath, high fever, cough. Rarely, in about 10% of cases, may have diarrhea and vomiting, may be associated with pneumonia as the disease progresses. As I mentioned, fever, cough, tiredness in about 70 to 80% of patients. About half of them will have dyspnea, 10% GI symptoms. What worries us is a very high attack rate, an RO of almost 4 and a case fatality rate of between 3 to 4%. It has an incubation time which varies between 3 to 14 days. Therefore, each asymptomatic person has the capability of infecting up to 10,000 people over these 14 days. How does it spread? It spreads through micro droplets, and through these micro droplets sitting on various objects, which are the fomites. So as you see here, talking, coughing, and sneezing releases particles in the air, and this is say about 5 micron size. Larger than 5 micron size particles tend to settle down faster. As you see here, 10 micron particle takes about 1.5 hours to settle down. So if you took in a line here, this is the number of particles that are spread with each cough, sneeze, or while talking. Very small particles tend to be dispersed in air for a long duration, and therefore closed spaces are to be avoided. As the virus invades the body, it causes mild constitutional symptoms, mainly dry cough, headache, fatigue, and tiredness. It is associated with lymphopenia, increased prothrombin time, hypercoagulability associated with inflammation, and as time progresses, the host inflammatory response sets in, patient starts to develop breathlessness, hypoxia, abnormal chest imaging, and elevated markers of inflammation. What are the high risk factors? Greater age, previous COPD or bronchial asthma, chronic kidney disease, uncontrolled diabetes, hypertension, previous MI, heart failure, biologics and rheumatoid arthritis, post-transplant recipients or patients on immunosuppression, and retrovirus infection. What are the signs which worry us? Tachypnea, tachycardia, hypoxia. Why I am stressing on this? Because this will determine your approach on whom to manage at your clinic and whom to send to the hospital. Mortality rate is higher in elderly. This is the defense mechanism of your respiratory tract. It has ciliated epithelial cells it has a mucoid layer on top of it, adequately humidified, it traps all the viruses and bacteria and throws it out. The virus gains entry into type 2 pneumonocytes through the AC receptors on it and subsequently penetrates inside. Like I showed you, these are the spike glycoproteins. They take an entry through the ACE2 receptor and then it endocytizes. The earlier endosomes mature into lysosomes, or the late endosomes. This digests the capsule of the virus and frees the RNA. The virus RNA then enters the host cell nucleus to use the replication process and multiply. This is the cell diagram. The virus enters itself, attaches to early endosome. That endosome matures to late endosome, and then the viral RNA gets released. It uses the rough endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus of the cell to multiply. It also uses some mechanisms from the nucleus to mature, and subsequently it releases itself after multiplying within the cell. Edema. This alveolar edema causes increased work of breathing and difficulty in breathing. It also affects the circulatory system. It can cause hypotension, reduced perfusion, and multi-organ failure. It penetrates inside. Like I showed you, these are the spike glycoproteins. They take an entry through the ACE2 receptor. When it involves the heart, the virus attaches itself to the ACE2 receptor on the cardiomyocytes or the pericytes or the endothelial system of the vessel. It can produce endocarditis. It primarily produces myocarditis, resulting in decrease in LV systolic function. It causes acute coronary syndrome because of inflammation resulting in a ruptured plaque, causing occlusion or a near occlusion, resulting in non-ST elevation MI or ST elevation MI. Because of inflammation of the heart muscles, it can precipitate heart failure. It can affect the relaxation capability of the heart, resulting in preserved EF heart failure, and contractile effort of the heart, resulting in reduced EF heart failure. It produces arrhythmogenicity varying from supraventricular tachycardias, ventricular premature beats to VT. It produces hypercoagulability, resulting in anemia. Itself can be a cause of breathlessness. There is another theory which is being propagated, which is not proven as yet, that the virus manages to dislodge the active iron from its hemoglobin molecule. A hemoglobin molecule consists of four heme molecules and globulin chains. Within them are these active iron, which changes between ferrous and ferric, enabling it to carry oxygen. The theory says that the virus manages to displace this iron and therefore renders the blood ineffective. However, there has been no proof to this effect. So how do we approach? When you first examine the patient at your clinic, as most of us will start to do once the lockdown opens up, these people will present to us with symptoms of upper respiratory tract infection. Please maintain adequate personal protection in the form of a face shield and a face mask. Try and build a gap between you and the patient. When you take the history, ask for a history of fever, which is high grade generally, a dry cough associated body ache, fatigue, or breathlessness. Look at features of severe tachycardia, bradycardia, a blood pressure which is low, respiratory rate which is high, saturations which are less than 90%, chest if it shows bilateral Krebs bronchi. What are the investigations which you can do? You can do CBC, which may show you lymphopenia, because there are a higher number of monocytes which have been triggered off due to inflammatory reaction, elevated ESR or CRP to suggest high inflammation, urine routine microscope examination, LFT, KFT, elevated LDH or ALT levels are poor prognostic markers. An X-ray chest, I shall discuss the radiological findings later on. An ECG, a COVID-19 test can be ordered by you, which can be done at hospitals like ours, that is the Sarvodaya Hospital on your requisition. NT-BNP, echocardiogram. These are all investigations which you can order to help yourself understand whether your patient needs to be managed by you or the patient needs to be managed at a hospital. An ABG, which is often done at the hospital, is a marker for patients who are very sick, serum ferritin. We also do an H1N1 and procalcitonin levels to rule out associated co-infection. So what do you see on X-ray chest or a CT scan? It is very important for everyone to understand that on day 1 or 2 of symptoms, 50% of CT scans may be normal. 60-70% of X-ray chest would be normal. Subsequently, you may find patchy or diffuse asymmetric airspace opacities. They may go on to develop unilateral, non-homogeneous or homogeneous opacities suggestive of consolidation in lower lobe involvement initially and subsequently bilateral involvement. By day 3 to day 6, most patients, about 70 to 80% of patients, would go on to develop abnormalities in their X-ray or CT. CT would show abnormalities in 85 to 90% of patients. And these are ground glass opacities and consolidations. By day 7, that is in the second week, now the patient has progressive multifocal consolidations in one or both lungs. In 25% of cases, the opacity may remain just focal or unilateral, but in 70-75% of cases, it is multifocal and involves both the lungs. CT may show patchy areas of ground glass opacity and consolidation, central lobular nodules, tree in bud opacities, and this would be more likely to be looking like any other atypical or opportunistic cause of pneumonia. The X-ray involvement is expected by day 12 or so in those patients who do not have an radiological improvement. These are the patients who are not likely to do well. ECG. So ECG is the other test which you can do at your level. If your ECG shows sinus tachycardia, sinus bradycardia, frequent VPCs, AF, VT, conduction blocks, or STT changes, it is a good idea to send these patients to the hospital because myocarditis has high mortality in patients of COVID. They could have ischemia-related changes, as I mentioned. They may develop ST elevation MIs or non-ST elevation MIs associated with ST depression. They may have electrolyte abnormality-related changes, and pulmonary thromboembolism may be associated with the patient, and resulting in right axis deviation Q3 T3 on the ECG. Echo. Echo shows regional wall motion abnormalities, which is generally global hypokinesia, reduced LV ejection fraction, and systolic function. It could also be related to ischemia in the form, say, if it's associated with ST elevation MI or a non-ST elevation MI. There would be diastolic dysfunctions, valvular regurgitations, which may come up, which are new. Patient may also have pericardial effusion. Cardiac enzymes and NT-BNP is the other thing which you can do. If your patient has elevated TROP-T or TROP-I, If your patient has elevated NT-BNP, these are the patients who are not likely to do well. These are sicker patients and need to be hospitalized and given additional care. What are the investigations which you can do? You can do CBC, which may show you lymphopenia, because there are a higher number of monocytes which have been triggered off due to inflammatory reaction, elevated ESR or CRP to suggest high inflammation, urine routine microscope examination, LFT, KFT, elevated LDH or ALT levels are poor prognostic markers. An X-ray chest, I shall discuss the radiological findings later on. An ECG, a COVID-19 test can be ordered by you, which can be done at hospitals like ours, that is the Sarvodaya Hospital on your requisition. NT-BNP, echocardiogram. These are all investigations which you can order to help yourself understand whether your patient needs to be managed by you or the patient needs to be managed at a hospital. An ABG, which is often done at the hospital, is a marker for patients who are very sick, serum ferritin. We also do an H1N1 and procalcitonin levels to rule out associated co-infection. Which patients need to go to hospital? Patients who have pneumonia, who have a saturation of less than 90%, who have a respiratory rate more than 30, who have hypotension or hypertension, who have tachycardia, bradycardia, chest pain, syncope, gross ECG changes suggestive of ST elevation MI, non-ST elevation MI, arrhythmias or heart blocks. What are the high risk factors? Greater age, previous COPD or bronchial asthma, chronic kidney disease, uncontrolled diabetes, hypertension, previous MI, heart failure, biologics and rheumatoid arthritis, post-transplant recipients or patients on immunosuppression, and retrovirus infection. What are the signs which worry us? Tachypnea, tachycardia, hypoxia. Why I am stressing on this? Because this will determine your approach on whom to manage at your clinic. This is from a paper presented by Christian, Jean-Marc, Philippi, and Didier, and it explains as to how chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine helps at receptor binding, at endosome phase, in the Golgi apparatus, and maturation in the nucleus. Azithromycin, it's an inhibitor of protein synthesis. It blocks cytokine production and reduces inflammation. It prevents viral replication because of its action of inhibiting the protein synthesis, and therefore reduces virus production, fibrosis, and inflammation. This slide's tribute to Acharya Praful Chandra Ray, who was instrumental in discovery of hydroxychloroquine, which is the much touted savior as of today. So what are the factors which cause drug-associated QT prolongation? An older age, female sex, associated diuretic use, hypokalemia, baseline prolonged QT interval, an MI, more than 2 prolonged QT prolonging drugs. This is a typical situation in a heart failure patient. This patient could be post-MI, patient is likely to be on diuretic, he may have lower potassium and be an older person, including heart failure. So all of these predispose this person to developing long QT phenomenon. What are the investigations which you can do? You can do CBC, which may show you lymphopenia, because there are a higher number of monocytes which have been triggered off due to inflammatory reaction, elevated ESR or CRP to suggest high inflammation, urine routine microscope examination, LFT, KFT, elevated LDH or ALT levels are poor prognostic markers. How to diagnose? As the tests come up, as of now the RT-PCR is the established modality of testing. It tests positive in 67% of patients only, meaning it leaves out 33% of patients in the initial days. As the virus reduces, the positivity rate keeps reducing of the PCR. The LAMP PCR, which is now being developed by the Sri Chitra, may help improve this sensitivity because it looks at two components. Once the antibody tests come in by end of the month, the antibody tests will be a little more sensitive, and they come up in the second week as the viral load starts to reduce and the host immune response increases. IgM suggests a recent infection or an ongoing infection. IgG is indication of an older infection, and both of them will help us in diagnosing whether the patient has COVID, and this will improve our sensitivity. Till we have a definitive cure, these patients will keep coming to us in the OPD, and therefore we have to take precautions. Maintain adequate spacing. Please wear a mask, wear a head shield, use hand scrub or wash hands very frequently. Avoid touching fomites like stethoscope back to your body. Preferably keep a fan behind you facing the patient so that the virus or the airflow is away from that direction. And if you can partition the examination area and examine the patient on the other side of the transparent plastic film, that is much better.